18-year-old heroine of the skies. She was just 18 years old when she climbed into that cockpit, becoming the youngest woman to ever pilot a commercial aircraft across 3 continents. But what started as a triumph turned into a nightmare. At 30,000 feet, when the instruments failed and everyone on board looked to her to bring them home alive. Before we dive in, what time are you listening? Where are you from? Drop a comment below and tell me. And please like and subscribe for more videos like this. Sarah Martinez woke up at 4 in the morning, just like she had done every day for the past 6 months. She pulled on her crisp white uniform shirt, buttoned it carefully, and stared at herself in the mirror. The golden wings pinned to her chest still felt surreal. She was 18 years old and a certified commercial pilot. Her father had been a pilot. Her grandfather had been a pilot. Flying was in her blood, but nobody expected her to earn her license this young, and certainly nobody expected an airline to actually hire her. She drove to the airport in darkness, her hands steady on the wheel even though her heart hammered in her chest. Today was different. Today she would not be flying as a co-pilot. Today she would be the captain. The youngest captain her airline had ever appointed. She parked in the crew lot and walked through the empty terminal. Her footsteps echoed against the polished floors. The coffee shop was just opening. She ordered a black coffee and held the warm cup in both hands, letting the heat seep into her fingers. The operations manager, a man named Derek, was waiting for her near the gate. He looked her up and down with barely concealed doubt in his eyes. "You are really going through with this?" he said. It was not a question. Sarah nodded. "I am ready," she replied. He handed her the flight manifest. 243 passengers. Her stomach twisted, but she kept her face calm. She had trained for this. She had passed every test, every simulation, every evaluation. She was ready. Sarah walked down the jet bridge and entered the aircraft. The smell of recycled air and jet fuel filled her lungs. She loved that smell. She stepped into the cockpit and ran through her pre-flight checks. Every switch, every dial, every indicator. Her co-pilot arrived 15 minutes later. His name was Marcus, and he was 42 years old, with 20 years of flying experience. He shook her hand and smiled, but she could see the uncertainty in his eyes, too. She was used to it by now. The passengers boarded. Sarah could hear them shuffling down the aisle, stowing their bags, settling into their seats. She wondered if any of them knew how young their captain was. She wondered if they would feel safe if they did know. The flight attendants closed the cabin doors. Sarah requested clearance from the tower. Her voice was calm and professional over the radio. Clearance granted. She pushed the throttle forward, and the plane began to roll. They lifted off smoothly. The city fell away beneath them, a grid of lights growing smaller and smaller until it disappeared into the darkness. Sarah leveled the aircraft at cruising altitude. The flight was supposed to be routine. 5 hours from East Coast to West Coast, clear skies, light winds. But 40 minutes into the flight, something went wrong. The first warning light blinked on, then another, then another. Sarah's eyes darted across the instrument panel. The hydraulic system was failing. She felt the aircraft shudder beneath her. Marcus sat up straighter, his hands moving instinctively toward the controls. "What is happening?" he asked. Sarah was already running through emergency procedures in her mind. She had trained for hydraulic failure. Every pilot trained for hydraulic failure. But training in a simulator was different from the real thing. This was real. 243 people were depending on her. She keyed the radio. "Tower, this is Flight 723. We have a hydraulic failure. Requesting priority landing." The controller's voice crackled back immediately. "Roger 723. What is your status?" Sarah glanced at the gauges. "We are losing pressure in all 3 systems. We have partial control." The controller paused. "Understood. Proceed to nearest airport. Emergency crews are standing by." Sarah banked the aircraft carefully. Every movement felt heavy, sluggish. Without hydraulics, the control surfaces barely responded. She had to use twice the force to make the plane turn. Marcus was on the radio, with the airline reporting the situation, requesting technical support. Sarah's mind was racing. She thought about her training. She thought about her father, who had once told her that the difference between a good pilot and a great pilot was not skill, it was composure. "Stay calm," he had said. "Fear makes mistakes." The plane shuddered again. Sarah felt it through the yoke, through her seat, through her entire body. She could hear gasps from the cabin behind her. The passengers knew something was wrong. The flight attendants would be trying to keep them. Calm, but fear spreads fast in a confined space 30,000 feet above the ground. Sarah's hands tightened on the controls. She could not let fear control her. Not now. The nearest airport was 60 miles away. Sarah began a slow descent. The plane responded like a truck with no power steering, heavy and uncooperative. She compensated, adjusted, compensated again. Marcus was feeding her numbers. Altitude, airspeed, heading. His voice was tense but steady. They were a team now. Age did not matter. Experience did not matter. All that mattered was bringing this aircraft down safely. At 20,000 feet, the second hydraulic system failed completely. Sarah felt the yoke go slack in her hands. She had almost no control now. The plane wanted to pitch forward, to dive. She pulled back hard, using all her strength to keep the nose up. Her arms burned. Sweat dripped down her back. Marcus was on the radio again, his voice urgent. "Tower, we have lost secondary hydraulics. We are on manual control only." Sarah's training took over. Her body moved on instinct. She trimmed the aircraft using the last functioning system. She adjusted the throttles to control pitch. She used differential thrust to steer. It was like trying to drive a car using only the gas pedal and the parking brake. Every input had to be precise. Every correction had to be calculated. There was no room for error. The airport came into view. Sarah could see the runway lights stretching out like a path in the darkness. Emergency vehicles lined the taxiway, their red and blue lights flashing. She was coming in too fast. She knew she was coming in too fast. But she could not slow down without hydraulics. She could not deploy the flaps. She could not deploy the speed brakes. All she could do was aim for the runway and hope. Marcus called out the altitude. 5,000 feet. 4,000. 3,000. Sarah's eyes were locked on the runway. Her hands moved constantly, making tiny adjustments, fighting to keep the plane stable. 2,000 feet. 1,000. The runway rushed up to meet them. Sarah pulled back on the yoke with everything she had. The plane's nose lifted slightly. The rear wheels touched down first. The impact jarred through the entire aircraft. Passengers screamed. Sarah fought to keep the plane straight as it bounced once, twice, then settled onto the runway. But they were going too fast, way too fast. Without hydraulic brakes, Sarah had to rely on reverse thrust alone. She pulled the throttles back and deployed the reversers. The engines roared. The plane shook violently. They were eating up runway at an alarming rate. Sarah could see the end approaching. There were barriers at the end of the runway, concrete barriers designed to stop planes in emergencies. They were going to hit them. She made a split-second decision. She cut the right engine and kept the left at full reverse thrust. The plane began to turn, bleeding off speed as it curved across the runway. It was dangerous. It was unorthodox, but it was working. The plane slowed. The barriers loomed closer, slower, closer, slower. The plane came to a stop with less than 50 feet to spare. For a moment, there was silence. Then the cabin erupted in applause and sobs and prayers. Sarah sat in the cockpit, her hands still gripping the yoke, her entire body shaking. Marcus put his hand on her shoulder. "You did it," he said quietly. "You saved everyone." Sarah could not speak. She could not move. She had done it. She had brought them down. All 243 passengers were safe. The emergency crews surrounded the aircraft within seconds. The passengers evacuated down the emergency slides. Sarah was the last to leave the cockpit. Her legs were weak as she stepped out onto the wing. The cool night air hit her face and she realized she was crying. She climbed down the slide and stood on the tarmac, surrounded by her passengers. They were hugging each other, checking on their children, calling loved ones to say they were alive. An older woman approached Sarah. She had gray hair and kind eyes. "You are so young," the woman said. "How old are you?" 18, Sarah replied. The woman hugged her tight. "You have the courage of someone twice your age. Thank you for bringing us home." One by one, other passengers came to thank her. They shook her hand. They hugged her. They cried with relief. Sarah realized something in that moment. Her age did not define her ability. Her youth did not diminish her skill. She had proven herself in the most extreme circumstances possible. The airline launched an investigation into the hydraulic failure. They discovered that a maintenance error had caused the cascading system collapse. The error had nothing to do with Sarah's piloting. In fact, the investigators praised her decision-making under pressure. They said her unconventional landing approach had likely prevented a catastrophic crash. Within a month, Sarah was back in the cockpit. But she was different now. The doubt was gone. The uncertainty was gone. She knew who she was. She was a pilot. A damn good pilot? Her story spread. News outlets picked it up. Aviation experts analyzed her landing. Flight schools used it as a case study. Sarah became something she never intended to be. A symbol, proof that competence has no age limit, that in a crisis, what matters is not how many years you have lived, but how well you can think, how quickly you can act, and how much courage you can summon when everything is falling apart. Sarah continued to fly. She went on to captain hundreds of flights over the next few years. But she never forgot that night. The night when everything went wrong and she had to be perfect. The night when 243 lives depended on an 18-year-old girl who refused to panic. And every time she climbed into a cockpit after that, she carried that lesson with her. Fear is natural, but courage is a choice. And sometimes the youngest person in the room is exactly the person who needs to lead. So if you like this video, please like and subscribe for more videos like this.